Thank you. Giselle Badía is a TEFL graduate from IES Olga Cossettini and holds a BA in English Language and Literature from UCL University in Rosario. She has over 20 years of experience lecturing on phonology, language, grammar at both state and private teaching training colleges in Rosario, as well as teaching secondary school classes focused on C1 and C2 Cambridge English exams. She has recently completed courses in CSE, Artificial Intelligence in the Classroom. An actress as well, she explores the integrated drama and voice techniques in language education. Welcome, Giselle.
Okay, hello, thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here today. And I'm sorry I couldn't attend the earlier sessions, but I finish work very, very late. So that's why I have just been able to log in. All right, so I am allowed to share, right? Yes, I guess so. Here we are, okay. All right. So today I decided to talk about the power of words, mainly the power of language in shaping thought and inclusion. So in this workshop, I thought of it as a workshop so that we can interact with one another. And we will explore the impact of language on the way we think, behave, and develop abilities. We will also analyze newspaper headlines to identify bias and identify microaggressions in seemingly innocent texts. I guess you may be familiar with this TED Talk, which was given a couple of years ago. Lera Boroditsky is a cognitive scientist who precisely talks about the power of language in shaping your thoughts. And this is what she calls her TED Talk, Does Language Shape the Way We Think? And well, I found it quite inspiring, and I'd like to share with you just a little bit of it so that we can go on with it later. Just to check, can you actually see the video and listen and hear it? No? Okay, sorry. So I have to go somewhere else. I have to stop sharing and share again. I'm sorry. Okay.
Does the language we speak shape the way we think?
All right. Is it okay now? Good. Now let me know if you can hear it as well.
Speak shape the way we think. Yeah. These are the Kuktire people. They live in Komporao at the very west edge of Cape York. In Kuktire, they don't use words like left and right. And instead, everything is in cardinal directions, north, south, east, and west. And when I say everything, I really mean everything. You would say something like, oh, there's an ant on your southwest leg. Or move your cup to the north-northeast a little bit. In fact, the way that you say hello in Kuktire is which way you go. And the answer should be north-northeast in the far distance. How about you? People who speak languages like this stay oriented really, really well. They stay oriented better than we used to think humans could. We used to think that humans were worse than other creatures because some biological excuse, oh, we don't have magnets in our beaks or in our scales. No, if your language and your culture trains you to do it, actually, you can do it. Lots of languages have grammatical gender.
Okay. So basically, what she's saying is precisely that if you are trained as regards where everything is, you will be able to stay oriented very, very easily, right? Now, do you guys know exactly where the north is right now? If you had to, just off the top of your heads. It may be hard, right? So I wouldn't know myself. I would have to think about it clearly and I'm at home, but it usually is quite difficult to stay oriented in that way. And these people are able to do it because they use it all the time, right? Now, this is another example.
Actually, you can do it. Lots of languages have grammatical gender. So every noun gets assigned a gender, often masculine or feminine, and these genders differ across languages. Could this have any consequence for how people think? Actually, it turns out that's the case. So if you ask German and Spanish speakers to say, describe a bridge, like the one here, bridge happens.
Right? So let's try it. So bridge. If I say the word bridge, right, or puente, what characteristics, what adjectives would you guys give to it? What adjectives would you use?
Old, new.
Old or new, all right. Anything else? High, low, magnificent. Right.
Stone made.
Okay, made of stone. All right, good. Okay, now let's see what she says. Usually when I try this, that there are other adjectives that come to mind, but let's have a
masculine in Spanish. German speakers are more likely to say bridges are beautiful, elegant, and stereotypically feminine words, whereas Spanish speakers will be more likely to say they're strong or long and masculine words. The languages also differ in how.
All right. So probably, yeah, well, you may not have thought about these words, but usually when I use this video, for example, with my students, it happens to be the case that they tend to say that they are long or strong, or made of stone, for example, rather than other characteristics or other materials, rather. Okay, let's have a look at this one.
Describe event. In English, it's fine to say he broke the vase. In a language like Spanish, you might be more likely to say the vase broke or the vase broke itself. If it's an accident, you wouldn't say that someone did it. In English, quite weirdly, we can even say things like, I broke my arm. Now, in lots of languages, you couldn't use that construction unless you are a lunatic and you went out looking to break your arm and you succeeded. People who speak different languages will pay attention to different things depending on what their language usually requires them to do. And that gives you the opportunity to ask, why do I think the way that I do? How could I think differently? And also, what thoughts do I wish to create?
All right. Okay, right. So, precisely this let me go back to it. Here we are. All right. So basically what she proves there is that you are able to do things differently according to the language that is available to you. You may think about objects differently according to whether you think of it in terms of feminine gender or masculine gender. And also that you are bound to remember events differently according to the different grammatical structures that are available in your own language as well, right? Now, there is another example in her talk, which is not included in this summary, but it's interesting because it's connected to colors, right? So, for example, if I give you this word, can you have a mental image of it? I'm sure you can, right? Just think of this word. Yeah, are you there? Good. Now, did anybody think about this? Did you think about this kind of blue? What would you call this kind of blue in Spanish?
Celeste.
Celeste. Okay, good. So we have a word for this color, actually, right? And if you asked an English speaker, a native speaker of English, they might have thought about this color very, very readily, right? I have an anecdote connected to this because I remember, well, some time ago I was in England and a friend of mine had left his shirt in a hotel and he said to me, well, pregunta si hay una camisa celeste, si yo me olvidé una camisa, right? No, I'm sorry, he didn't tell me the color. So when I phoned the hotel, and the receptionist said, "Oh yes, is it blue?" And so I asked my friend, "Oh, you didn't tell me the color." Le pregunté, "No, no me dijiste el color, ¿es azul?" Y me dijo, "No, es celeste." Y yo pensé automáticamente, entonces es otra, right? So it took me a minute, it took me a while when I said, "Oh no, yeah, it's blue," because the receptionist is thinking about this blue color, which is perfectly okay, right? So that image is not in our heads because, or is not in, is different according to the color or the word, the label that you are able to give to the color in this particular case, right? So, in English, of course, you may very well say light blue. But what would happen if I asked you to think about light red? Would it be an image as clear as the one that you had when I said blue? Probably not. Probably you would think about a color somewhere along these shades, right? But you wouldn't say about, si yo les digo rojo claro, ¿se entiende? Si yo les digo rojo claro, quizás piensan en estas, but you're not going to think about pink, probably, right? So that's why precisely we can say, all right, how crazy it is that if we do have a label for a word, then especially for a color, then the image is clear. And if we don't, it's not, right? If we have to somehow change it, right? So along the conclusions that we can draw from this cognitive scientists' concepts, we can say precisely the language allows us to do things like staying oriented. It could determine what traits we associate objects with. It makes us remember events differently, right? Which is the example she gave in connection to the vase and who broke it, or if it broke or what happened. And it even makes things real, right? Celeste is more real to us Spanish speakers than a general blue. An English speaker, a native English speaker, would not be able to tell the difference between light blue and blue as clearly as we as Spanish speakers are able to do it, right? Now, that got me to think about these concepts, right? So, for example, the first one, if you pay attention to the first one, which is a ship, right? Again, what characteristics would we associate with a ship, right? Again, in Spanish, we use masculine, right? El barco, right? But you know that in English, if people want to assign a gender to it, it would be she, right? Which would be quite strange for us to think about it. I don't know, when I was a child and I learned that ships could be referred to as she, it was kind of strange for me. The same thing goes for a car. Oops, sorry. When the famous phrase, okay, fill her up, which was, of course, again, a car being referred to as a female, right? And the characteristics we can give to it. Then in connection to the ship versus un barco versus una canoa, right? What characteristics do you associate to a canoe if you think about it in terms of gender again? And the same thing goes for death, for instance, right? Of course, in Spanish, la muerte, la barca, right? And all the associations we can make to it in connection to it being feminine. And of course, in English, it is referred to as a he. And then again, there are different anecdotes we can draw on in connection to this. When death, for example, is used in films as a character, there is one which is The Book Thief, for instance, La Ladrona de Libros, in which death is a character. And I took some time, again, to realize that the character, because it was a voiceover, so you could just hear the voice, and it was a male voice, and it took longer for me to realize that that character was actually death because it was a male voice, right? And something similar happened with hermit, right? La rana René. So I remember this because as a child, I had been given a toy, and my mom kept on referring to it, mira la rana, qué linda la rana, and it was kind of disconcerting for me because it was supposed to be a he, right? And then again, notice the choice of the word René the name that was chosen because it was not Hermit, but René. Why René? Because, well, it was a name that could be used to refer to either a female or a male character. But then again, the whole construction of the character in this case depended on that, right? Okay. So imagine if all this, what consequences this could have in terms of what we call when we talk about lenguaje inclusivo, right? Or the kinds of the choice of certain words over other words, right? Especially in Spanish, right? If we think about el por qué decir estudiantes y no alumnos, right? So then again, probably if you just think about it, and it's just an experiment, right, of what ideas come to mind when I say los chicos de ese curso se portan mal, right? Si la idea inicial que se les representa en su cabeza es más referida a varones o a mujeres, quizás sí a los dos, pero quizás lo primero que se nos viene a la cabeza probablemente sean varones. Los médicos están haciendo lo posible por salvarle la vida. Los ingenieros presentaron su informe. Los policías llegaron a la escena del crimen. Los abogados están revisando el contrato. Los directores decidieron cambiar el plan. Los jefes quieren hablar con vos. Los científicos descubrieron una nueva especie. Los escritores fueron premiados por su trayectoria. Los técnicos arreglaron la conexión de Internet. Right? Something that still happens to me as a teacher, when we talk about writers in general or a student, for writing, when we want to teach writing to our students and there is a model answer and we want to refer to the writer, probably yes, the first thing that comes to mind is a he, right? And so the writer chose this because he, unless we know who the writer is, which I mean the name is usually included in authentic material, of course. Probably at least that's what happens to me. I automatically think of a man when I think of a writer, and still today, and still after years and years of knowing how this should be different, I still think of a male, probably, right? Because I think about escritor rather than escritora, right? And then if we try to think about language as it is, right, and we compare them, well, a lot has been said about this on how certain, when we talk about females, the affixes, I mean, women are always, the terms that are used for women are always in terms of affixes of what already exists. And that's why you get woman versus man, Mrs. versus Mr., madam versus sir. And these are more interesting, like mistress versus master, seamstress versus tailor, right? And everything that is associated with it. Una costurera versus un sastre, right? Pretty, handsome, bossy, dominant. Those are also interesting. Frigid versus stoic, frumpy, unkept, whinging, complaining, working mum versus dad, shrill versus loud, pushy, aggressive, hysterical, upset, breathless, flustered, witchy, jerk. So even those words that are supposed to be insults in a way still give a different connotation related to so questions related to language and the power of language are of course also related to, or we can all see them in the media and headlines, right? So the following is more language crafts reality, right? And I took some drawn these. Can you hear me? Connection seems to be unstable.
It is a bit choppy.
Okay, I'm not sure what I can do to improve it, but
Now you sound
okay,
better.
now. Okay, you let me know if you want published on The Guardian, as I was saying, and the headline is, in America's news headlines, Palestinians die mysterious deaths, right? And he says this precisely because it's connected to language. What he says in some part in the article is, it is the peculiar fate of oppressed people everywhere that when they are killed twice. First by bullet or bomb, next by the language used to describe their deaths, right? So in connection to this, he gives the example of the New York Times, and on the Times reported on this event. What happened actually was that there was a protest in the US embassy, right? And well, Palestinians were killed while they were protesting, right? So what happens, let's see, if we analyze the first tweet, right? So we have dozens of Palestinians have died in protests as the US prepares to open its Jerusalem embassy. Then the second one, which was in a physical paper, was Israelis kill dozens in Gaza. And the last kills dozens at Gaza border as US embassy opens in Jerusalem, right? So what differences can you find among these three headlines, let's say, in terms of what could be interpreted or shades of meaning and stuff? What would you say?
In physical paper, it's shorter. The headline is shorter, isn't it?
Very, very good. It's shorter, right? But as regards to the implications of what it aims at communicating, in the first one, for example, do we know
No, we don't know
who was
who.
responsible?
Sorry.
Exactly, right. Right, good. So that's why he says that the writer says they die mysterious deaths, right? So there are no words in connection to killing, right? There is no agent, basically, right? So the writer of the tweet chose an intransitive verb. They died, and that just happened, right? Whereas in the second one, there is an agent, right? So we've got Israelis kill dozens. Okay, so we can say that now the agent is mentioned, but what's the difference between Israelis and Israel, right? In Israelis, it could be anybody, right? It could be any Israeli person, right? Whereas in Israel, it is the state that is responsible for their deaths, right? So that's why that's where we can see the difference, right, between them. And there are other two which are also related. You've got Gaza buries its dead as death toll from protests at fence with Israel rises to at least 60. So again, no mention of the killing, right? And then the other one, clashes over the new US and leave dozens dead, right? So again, dodging any sort of responsibility from those who were responsible for it. So when dealing with articles, when dealing with the news, when dealing with the media, right? One of the skills that I think we should encourage our students to develop is the ability for them to be able to facts and opinions, right? Which is kind of basic, but sometimes it's a bit hard to detect, right? And for this, I'd like to share with you another text, which is very, very short. And let me, just in case, I will open the door if the connection gets better. Give me a sec. Okay. All right. So if I just give you this text, it is quite short. Let's see if you can tell me what the facts are, the mere facts. All right. What do we know for certain? What are the facts in this story? Because it's not even an article, right? It's a story, an account or something of the sort. So what are the facts?
Emphasizing that he's black.
Okay, the whole thing is about him being black. All right. Okay, good. So that could be a fact, right? He's black. What else?
He spoke English, intelligent.
Okay. He spoke English. Right. So we can say Paul was a black boy, right? Okay. We could say, sorry.
In the chat, there's a comment. He didn't seem to be black. What? That is what the comment says.
Paul was a black boy. He went to secondary school with the speaker. Of course, we'll get to that in a minute. Very good. So these are the facts, right? So we say Paul was a black boy, secondary school. He was born in Los Angeles. He had grown up there. And Mrs. Smith was a teacher, a maths teacher, right? So if this is a just an account, right, of a person who is talking about Paul, right? Okay. Now, if we just look at or if we just read or if we listened to it as an account, the facts would be very few, right? Just these. Okay. Now, in terms of opinion, right, which is the whole other lot, right? Would you say that the writer or the speaker liked Paul? Yes, right. I mean, the speaker seems to be in favor of Paul. I mean, she or he loved Paul, basically, right? Now, notice the whole thing. This is opinion, right? What's in purple, the whole thing is opinion. Agree that the speaker likes Paul, right? Now, are all the comments positive? Is it or that? Oops, sorry. This thing about he didn't seem to be black is like too strong. But can you find any other examples related to that? Sorry. Or which of these would you say are, let's say, positive comments, and which others would you say are not so much so?
That he
So he
had a
didn't
good
seem.
relationship with the girls, even though, sorry.
Okay.
That he had a good relationship with the girls, even if the girls
Uh-huh.
are white.
Okay, all right. So those are nice. Okay,
The fact
good. So
that the author
yeah.
thinks that he was polite, spoke with English, incredibly intelligent. Those seem racist ideas also.
Unexpected.
Oh, right.
Clash
Okay.
with his blackness.
Exactly.
The stages of being
Exactly.
black
Good.
would not
Sorry,
actually
Fleur?
that the stages of being black does not actually bring forth all these positive comments.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. Right. Good. So it actually, if we pay attention to it and we see the comments in red, right? If you say he didn't seem to be black, that's a lot, right? Then everybody felt at ease. polite, spoke good English, and was incredibly intelligent. Most of the girls liked him, so this seems to be complimentary, right? But then, although all of them were white, right? So why shouldn't they like him? Why is that worth commenting on, right? And then the last one, right? It's not his fault, is it? So as if there was anything wrong to begin with being black, right? So these are all, and actually this it's not his fault is an actual comment I heard in everyday life, right, by a very nice girl talking about it. She was talking about somebody else who had criticized, when Harry and Meghan got married, and she had overheard somebody saying that it was a pity that Harry should marry a black girl or something of the sort. And this girl, she was a student of mine, and she found it outrageous. And so she said, and I came up to her and said, well, come on, it's not her fault. Why should you? And I was like, oh my God. But well, this is the thing behind it, right? And this is what we call microaggressions, precisely, right? A comment or action that subtly and often unconsciously or unintentionally expresses a prejudiced attitude toward a member of a marginalized group, such as a racial minority, right? And there is, another share with you, which precisely discusses this issue.
Doing chemistry so well, doing chemistry.
Okay.
Doing chemistry so well because you're Asian.
Where are you from? Because your hair is like other white hair.
Osama bin Laden was your uncle, right?
We're talking about which are usually unintended racial slights towards a person of a different race. The term microaggression was originally coined by psychiatrist Dr. Chester Pierce in the 1970s. It was later used by Columbia professor Darrell Sue to define the small interaction and understand the negative impacts they have. If you have never experienced a microaggression or considered yourself a perpetrator, then you're probably white, although everyone is capable of the act. But we're not just talking about race.
They can be based on race, but they're usually based on intersections of different representations of race.
There's a broad scope of people, and once more, they usually occur unconsciously and automatically by the perpetrator. So they may not even realize that what they're saying can actually have an impact. And sometimes the perpetrator may think they're being innocent when they're actually being ignorant.
All right. So let me sorry, there is a comment. Okay. So actually, it's that there was an experiment at a school in America in which all students had to write which they think they suffered for microaggressions, what some of them said. Right? So what are you? Human. Being biracial doesn't make me a what, for instance. Or you don't act like a normal black person, right? So again, there is this sort of prejudice that, okay, if black, then you're bad, and if you're good, then you are the exception. Oh, Courtney, I never see you as a black girl, so don't worry because I don't see you as black, for instance. Or you don't speak Spanish, right? She's a Latina, and people, let's say, find it strange that she doesn't speak Spanish. Or when standing next to my mum, why is your daughter so white, for instance? Or you're really pretty for a dark-skinned girl, right? Considering all the time somewhere there going around, right? So some of the conclusions we can draw are precisely that language allows us to do things. It determines what traits we associate objects and people with. Language creates perspectives, and language is never innocent, basically. So I would like to go back to the cognitive scientists. Say, why do I think the way that I think? How could I think differently? And so thank you very much. That would be it. Okay, so now if you would like to discuss, if you've got some questions, would be delighted to listen to them. Flor, you have good. There are some links. Good. Comment is free to some articles, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I started just brainstorming
Right.
ideas.
No.
Everything that you commented on, I thought of an article that I had worked with my students. I lecture in English language 4 at teaching training college, and we work on critical discourse analysis, and several of the things, yes, have to do with this. I was thinking of the very first comment had to do with your reference to ship in this article from The Guardian about the 19 language, greatest language wars of all times, linguistic wars. There is a reference to a whole uproar on a captain and a feminist attack on why was it that they resorted to the female pronoun to refer to ships, and what there's a very interesting comment about that in that article, together with other issues that have to do with language struggles. And then I was thinking of this short story by Ted Boston, The Revolt of the Evil Fairies, which is quite interesting because it's a color school in the United States. The setting is a color school in the United States, and there are different, I mean, they are all Black students, but they are all like, and I'm going to use lots of inverted commas on this comment, right? But there are lots of like shades of Black. And so there's discrimination, yes, within the Black community as to who's going to take which role in the end of the year school play. And so the evil fairies are the darker students, and they are always competing upon who's going to be Prince Charming. And Prince Charming is always going to be the one that is. And so this idea that kids themselves try to like powder their faces to be lighter, yes, or fairer, so that they can be appointed as Prince Charming. And that led me to this other text about, you know, this uproar with the Dove commercial and the racist Dove commercial, the Black woman that somehow like washes herself with Dove products, and then she takes off her Blackness and she becomes white. No, and there was this, wow, what? How can you be so, yes, careless? I mean, there's lots of people working on commercials and a lot of money invested on commercials. How come that you, I mean, are going to handle those very delicate issues, especially with soap? No, this idea of a product that washes away your Blackness. What are we talking about, right? And then just a personal comment, right, with reference to this microaggression. But, you know, if there is something that I have to work out with an analyst, probably is the fact that as a student in primary school, yes, I could never be a lady in the 25th of May celebration. And I was always actually appointed as the pastelito saleswoman, right? And that is something that really frustrated me, yes, especially the part when my mother had to burn a wine cork, right? It's all about my face. And I've got my bulging blue eyes, yes, and the black face, yes, and the basket with pastelitos, right? And I always wanted to be at least once in my life, right? A lady walking along, right? But that was not possible because apparently, right, I mean, it was kind of microaggression, right? In the sense that, or I perceived it in the sense that probably they wanted to show that, well, everybody could be, no? So it was a bit of the revolt of the evil fairies at school. Well, those things and how children perceive those things, right? It's quite interesting. Sorry, but those were some of the ideas that popped out when you were talking. Very, very interesting what she.
Absolutely. No, of course, no. On the contrary. No, that's great. That's great. Yeah, sure. And yes, and actually, if you read, I was just thinking when you mentioned this about Americana, it's a novel by Chimamanda Adichie, and there she mentions precisely different. I mean, it's connected to class and to prestige, and it has to do exactly the dangers of a single story. And there in Americana, she talks about that, about how people in Africa, in Nigeria in particular, talked about being gendered, not gendered, sorry, raced, right? So if it's like, oh, he's so handsome, there must be a white person somewhere on his line. So it's quite a question. Yeah. Sorry, there was something you wanted to
I
say,
was going
guys.
to comment that idea of the soap taking out the blackness was in a textbook when my mother was at school, and she had the textbook, and a black boy went into the tub so he can be white by scrubbing himself white with soap. So that idea is quite way past, almost
Yeah.
100 years ago.
Yeah, it has always been like that. And unfortunately, there is a friend of mine who is my age, right? He's very young. No, he's in his 50s, but he always talks about he's from a town, and he always jokes about it. And he's fair, by the way. He's not as dark as I am, for example. He says that his mum would take him to the swimming pool of the club at his town, and when she saw that there was, that they were pouring bleach onto the swimming pool, she would push him into it so as to if that bleach would do something to him. And he's very funny and he plays jokes all the time. Hey, did that really happen? He goes, I can assure you it did happen. Leech. So this was what, I don't know, 35 years ago or so, right? So yeah, it's quite an issue. Right. And yes,
sorry, I wanted just to share
of
something that
course.
happened. I felt in my body while you were mentioning microaggressions, and we were reading the text about the black boy. I had the feeling of a pat on the shoulder, like, oh, come on, yes, it's like this idea of protection, but like justifying that he is what he is, and
exactly.
it felt so uncomfortable. It felt so aggressive, because it was said and unsaid at the same time, and that idea of well, it's I just that I wanted to share that feeling that I had at that moment, and how important it is to work on that with our students, because sometimes we do that as well, and we are not conscious about that. How terrible it is. As you say, they say, well, did I say that?
Right. Yeah, I know. And what happens is, if you start thinking about it, I remember there was when I bring this up in different classes. So there are comments I did not expect. For example, there is a girl who is, let's say, hegemonically beautiful, right? I mean, she's fair, she's got eyes and everything. And apparently she used to be plumper, and So, and that when I usually finish this talk by saying, okay, have you ever felt there was some sort of microaggression, or have you ever felt part of that? And she said, when I was younger, she's very young, she must be in her, I don't know, mid-20s probably. And she said, people would always look at me and say, oh, you've got such a beautiful face. So
Just that.
they never said, o sea, que dijeran, qué linda, qué cara linda que tenés, de alguna manera hacía que ella sintiera, según dijo después, she used to be, I don't know, much plumper than she was when, I mean, she must have been plump when she was little, right? And so the thing is, okay, it's such a pity. So at least it's like people wanted to compliment her. So it's what nice, okay, as if we were trying to hide that you don't have a perfect body, but hey, look at your face. You've got such a pretty face. So even, you know, comments which are meant to be positive may have an effect on, you know, what you're what you are trying not to say. Actually, it shows.
Highlights that the rest is not perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's it, right. Valeria Massa, sos tan linda, ¿por qué no bajas de peso? Valeria Massa, imagine. But there is always something like that, right? It's like there is something wrong with you, right? But at least this is what you've got, right? O no sé, comentarios como, no sé, bueno, para ser una mujer sos buena en tal cosa, o sea, teniendo en cuenta this considering thing, right? Or I don't know, she's beautiful considering she's, I don't know, Asian, or considering she's dark-skinned or whatever. Right. Okay, good. Okay. Anything else, girls, you would like to say about it? Any questions? In class, for instance, this is the else that sometimes we may tend to overlook at times. I remember some time ago at school there was a boy from England, and the students in my class, among the students in my class, there was an Asian boy, and his classmates used to refer to him as Chino. So they went like, Chino, basta, Chino. And I remember this, the first time one of them said that, the boy turned up to me. He looked at me, but he couldn't believe what he had heard. And he was like, are you going to allow that? And it was like, well, and it's the same as Chino, as if it was some sort of insult. Thing as of course, it also has to do with culture and this famous, when was it? Some time ago that it was an Argentinian that that left a comment on a black boy, negrito, te extrañamos negrito, or something of the sort, and he had to pay for it was a very, very heavy fine also, and in fact, eso, o sea, que there is a lot of culture within it as well, right? If we say, I don't know, people call me negra. I mean, there are many friends of mine who call me like that, and I particularly don't mind, right? And there are other blonde girls who are referred to as la polaca, ponele, right? So it's, I don't know, it has to do with, of course, culture and context as well, right?
Yes, and about microaggressions, for example, my husband cleans a lot. He likes cleaning. He likes washing up. And so people tell me, qué suerte que tenés que a tu marido le gusta hacer todas esas cosas. Again, microaggressions. It is your duty to do them, but you're lucky he does it for you.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And it's like, oh, he's such a saint. All right. Ay, es un santo tu marido porque vos salís, o cómo cuida a los chicos, right?
I was just about to say that. My grandma, well, the fact aside that she was my grandma, but all the time, and you're here with her father, and you live with him.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yes. Yes, that's quite quite common still today. It's like I sometimes, okay, we could say that I don't know, there are some younger couples who take it a little bit more naturally, but yeah, if you are lucky, if you have a husband who helps you, basically. That's it. Okay. All right, here, Fleur comments, a friend wouldn't let her husband clean the bathroom. It was too much, too nasty. It's like, okay, they are not ready to do that. They were not born for that. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, girls.
To the three speakers of today, because they were different topics, but very, very, very useful for us to work with. And well, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording.